All right, let's go live and say hi to everybody. I'm Dave Casler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, coming to you live from Ridgway, Colorado, actually about 10 miles north. We're near the Ridgway Reservoir. It is 39 degrees and 27% relative humidity. We have heard rumors of snow coming, but if it's going to snow, it's going to have to get a move on. It's a little warm right now, and the wind is 0. So if something's going to move in, it's maybe, we'll see. They keep predicting snow for us, and we keep not getting it. It seems to land all around us. And our snowpack in the mountains is higher than normal, so we're doing pretty good this year. It won't be enough to end the drought, but perhaps it will at least fill the reservoirs. To truly end the drought, you have to fill the aquifers too. That's a little harder thing to do. That's where California is running into all of its problems right now, is it's getting all of this water all at once, and it's all running off into the ocean. And there's no plan to push it down into the ground where it can keep the aquifer going. Some of the aquifers are clay-based, and when you take the water out, it's out. It's not going back in. So that's an issue. That's kind of what happened to the Olagalaga, aquifer in Nebraska, that area up there. They pumped all the water out of it, and there's no more. They've abandoned their farms. It's gone back to grasslands, and I guess you can run a few cattle on it, but not much else. There's not the water anymore like there used to be. Well, let's see. We've got Joseph DeRose, GE, good evening, Dave, from the beautiful Bronx, where it's 40 degrees and clear. And Mike Oswald is from Middleburg, Florida, where it's 64 degrees, AA7MO. And Terrence has checked in from the UK in London, 2 Echo 0 IPK. Says, hope all is well with you. 7 degrees centigrade here in London. That's actually kind of warmish, I guess. Chuck Schreiber, good evening, Dave, and Augie's Worldwide, N5 KVO from the Hill Country, South Texas. Beautiful night, and currently 77. School is in session. Yeah, Leo Gustafson. Hi, Dave and all Augies. Leo KK7CLY in Albany, Oregon, 42 degrees and light showers. Yeah, I've heard that there's so much snow there. Blunt Valerio has a channel I like to watch because he's always on top of both the natural and man-made disasters and telling us what's going on. And of course, he's right in the middle of a disaster zone right now. And he is actually pushing the snow off of his roof because it's up to 3 feet. And that's about the limit for his roof. And apparently he used to be an inspector of some kind that would look at roofs and stuff and see what snow load they can handle. Anyway, he's been clearing snow off his roof. What he's afraid of is that the rain will fall on it, get the snow very saturated, it gets heavier, and finally the roof caves in. They've had that trouble in a lot of places. San Bernardino County in California is the home of Lucerne Valley. And when I was a teenager, my dad had a cabin out there at 5,000 feet, which I absolutely loved to go to with my friends. We'd take our motorcycles, our dirt bikes, and just have a blast up there. Anyway, that place is, long out of our care. And as near as I can tell from Google Maps, the cabin has since burned to the ground, but oh well. Anyway, that's my old stomping ground, so San Bernardino Mountains. And they do get snow once in a while. It does happen. And they've been plastered, absolutely plastered there.
Okay, 7 centigrade is 45 degrees Fahrenheit. James McDonough says, all right, Dave, listening from England. Good to see you. Justin Jacob, put on my glasses so I can actually see this. I used to be able to see it without these, but I've been having some interesting eye trouble. I'm diabetic, so it causes the eyes to do strange and weird things. Okay, Davenport, Iowa, 32 and snowing. That sounds like spring snow. It'd be pretty water heavy. Eddie, hello from rainy and windy Sacramento. It's heading toward Ridgeway, Colorado as we type. S6 SDW. You guys are in for a lot of fun times here. If all that water comes down from the Sierras at once, it could be entertaining there. I know that area is flood prone. A relative of mine years ago, many years ago, finished his basement just in time for the floods to come and ruin it all. So hello from Rainy. Okay. Now, Mark Saunders, MM7PGL, from Scotland, hoping everybody is well. He's sitting his intermediate RSGB exam in 10 days. Wow, that's great. That would be, I think, approximately the equivalent of our general. A lot of countries have only 2 classes of license, introductory and full. The U.S. has now 3, although there's a bunch of people grandfathered into older licenses. And but people, I think, are going to fewer. A lot of countries do not allow more than 20 watts on HF, which is why you see this proliferation of 20-watt radios. They're going for that international market. Okay, let's see. Well, good luck, Mark, on your exam. Don, good evening, Dave and all Augies from the Twin Cities of Minnesota. Snowing since 10, no accumulation on the roads due to 30-plus temperatures today. Yeah, if snow were to just simply fall where it looks nice and pretty, like on the lawn, on the mountains, maybe a little in the trees, and leave the pavements just wet, that would be good. It's when the stuff accumulates on the roads that it's a problem. Leo Gustafson, lots of clay here and much more terracotta 40 miles north of me. Dave Gardner, hello, KB6ZNS from Central Ohio, hello. You guys are getting plastered there too. Paul C, VK4 from Australia. DPC from VK Land, trust you're keeping well. As always, looking to your live stream. Big thank you for all you do for the hobby. Well, thank you. Phil Lewis in Portland, Oregon. Our weather pattern is changing over. It's 39 and raining again, but then this is the Pacific Northwest. Well, I think in Oregon you're used to the rain, but maybe not the snow. I've been up there. It's beautiful country. There's a rose garden, a very large rose garden to the west of Portland that my wife and I went to some years ago. And I just couldn't stop taking pictures. And I still have them. It was just incredibly beautiful. I love roses. I love the smell. And I just enjoy taking a rose and just examining it. It, in my mind, is one of nature's forms of perfection. Anyway, there's a beautiful rose garden west of Portland, Oregon. Richard Joseph, hi Richard, 9M2RCJ from Malaysia. Okay, in Malaysia, 30 degrees centigrade now. That's a whole lot warmer than 30 degrees Fahrenheit, I will tell you that. Let's just look that up. Let's see. 30 degrees C in F. 86 degrees. That's not too bad. It's nice and warm, though. And I guess it's in the middle of the day there for you, isn't it? Good evening, Dave, from Kevin, W0KLH here. Lawrence Mahar, 38 degrees in Fortescue, Missouri. Thomas, I'm going to go with Weigel. Greetings from Minneapolis, 28F and snowing. Yeah, well, you get spring a little late there. 73s, best regards from Tom, AB0J. Glenn Martin, hello, from far west Missouri, 37 and 73% relative humidity, snow this morning, and slippery roads. Oh, I can guess. Jody Laney, KN4KBN, hi Dave, 51 in Alabama. And best wishes from KN4BKN. Sean, KM6NFO, best wishes to all Augies worldwide from soggy, windy Sacramento. We had a Sacramento earlier. I've got to imagine down there, you guys in Sacramento, we'll just look it up here, Sacramento. Wikipedia, Sacramento. Sacramento is the capital of the of California. Let's see if we can find a height above sea level. Elevation, 30 feet. 30 feet above sea level. Now, if you want to go to sea level in California from Sacramento, you're going to drive probably close to 100 miles. And it is a grand drop of 30 feet. So I will tell you, when there is too much water there, it takes a long time to work its way out to the San Francisco Bay and then out into the open ocean. And that's going to be a problem. There is a glacier in Antarctica, the Thwaites Glacier. It is cracked and coming loose. It's a land-based glacier. Part of it is underwater, or in the water, but most of it is not. When that thing breaks and comes loose, it becomes free-floating ice, and it will almost immediately raise sea level around the world by several feet. And you say, doesn't it have to melt to do that? And the answer is actually no. The ice cube, of course, is mostly below the water line and partly above. And as that thing melts, it will not change its position. The water melting underneath and the water melting from the top. Try this at home. Take a glass of water, mark on the side of it what the water level is, and put an ice cube in it. Mark where the water level is and wait for the ice cube to melt. The water level will be the same. So if sea ice melts, like in the Antarctic, no big deal. But there is a lot of water sequestered in the Arctic in glacier form, especially in Greenland, and in the Antarctic in glacier form. So that Thwaites Glacier is getting ready to go. And you can see what that would do to a city like Sacramento that is barely above sea level, 30 feet in how many miles? I mean, that is flat. And I've been there. I've been around there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. They're already having trouble with the water level in San Francisco during king tides. A high tide is, of course, when the moon pulls the water up. But you get the moon and the sun aligned just right, and you get an extra high tide. And that is enough to actually flood some of the low-lying areas around San Francisco. They've had some trouble down in Florida, too. Florida, which I used to live in, is flat as a pancake. Actually, probably a lot flatter than the pancakes I make. It exists very close to sea level, especially you get down around Miami. And I've seen pictures of people driving to their homes. The water's about 6 inches deep on the road. And fortunately, their homes are up a couple feet. But that water they're going through is salt water. So, yeah, it's kind of, it's going to take a while. You know, people will adjust. Okay, we will adjust. For example, I'm at 7,000 feet. I doubt the water will get up to us here. Now, I do have a question that I was talking with my wife about this last night. Let's suppose the sea level rises by 3 feet. It becomes the new sea level. The new mean sea level rises by 3 feet. What's that going to do to all the mountains around here? So our famous Mount Sneffels, and you know, I have named the business entity as Mount Sneffels Press. Mount Sneffels is 14,150 feet high. Now, are they going to go around and remark everything so that it will be 14,147 feet high? I don't know how they're going to handle this, because all the surveying that's been done in the world becomes inaccurate if the sea level goes up. It's only gone up a few inches on average, mean sea level. Now, note the mean is not the average. The mean is the number at which half the time it's lower and half the time it's above. Okay? Because obviously the tides roll in and roll out. But the mean means the middle, where half is below, half is above. And the average would be you take it all up and average it, but the average and the mean are two different things. It gets confusing. Okay, let's see. Soggy, windy Sacramento. John Ward, W3OJ in Laurel, Maryland, 50 degrees. M. Monahan in Nova near Manassas, which I've been to, is 39 degrees with snow flurries tomorrow. Roz Brown, W0NBG in Lakeland, Colorado. Finally, a sunny day here. Yes, I'm considering an MFJ 1623 balcony antenna for my discrete antenna. Anxious to get back on the air. I don't blame you. I think that's the, let's see, that's the MFJ 1623. Oh, come on. No, that's not what I wanted. Well, we'll just look it up here. Okay, this is the 1622 is the apartment antenna, and it's got a whip, a coil to adjust for loading. This is a counterpoise, and this is the cable. Okay, 1624. Oh well, let's look at it on MFJ. Let's see, 1623. MFJ Enterprises. Oh, I can't type anymore. MFJ 1623. Yeah, window balcony antenna with tuner. Okay, very good. There we go. Balcony, 30 to 6 meters. Okay, this is good. A telescoping whip. Tune the counterpoise, tune this. This is good. This is good. That's a good solution for that. So thank you for bringing that one to my attention. Okay. I lost my place here. Okay, very good, Roz. Good luck with that. Dan Beavis says hello from Dan in Florida, KQ4EYB. Brian Bienduga from Amsterdam, New York, K2OTY, 27, snow incoming. Mark Vining, KI5BNY, Morgan City, Louisiana. I started listening to shortwave broadcast of you and started using Google Translate's transcribe feature to get a live translation of the station. Interesting. I wonder why I would be on shortwave. Harry Rundle, hi, Dave and fellow Augies from Harry AC3EK, 45 in Overlea, Maryland. Harry's been a longtime supporter and patron. Dan Hamilton, evening, Dave and everyone. Dan from Cranbrook, British Columbia. Victor Alpha 7, Hotel Charlie Whiskey. 0 Celsius here and snow on the way. Hopefully it'll last for the season. Leo Gustafson, rain in Oregon. Oh, I got to tell you. I once went on a long motorcycle trip with some friends, and we went from here in Colorado out to Portland, Oregon, and then went down the Oregon coast. And a little bit of Northern California and the Redwoods, and then up through Crater Lake, and then home. And as we were going through Portland, I have never been wetter in my entire life. My boots were just filled with water. Did not have good boots at that time. And it was just wet. And we went out toward the ocean over to Astoria from Portland, and going through those jungle-like forests, and you'd see a house in disrepair, and the whole thing's covered with green mold. I mean, it is so wet. You put a nail out there, and in the morning it'll be just rust. I mean, it's that way. But I've got to tell you, I don't think I've seen prettier things than I saw along the Oregon coast. There was one place there, it has a lighthouse and so on. It took lots of pictures of the bridge. And the name of the place will come back to me. It's about halfway down the coast. It just was a wonderful, wonderful trip. And we did climb up all the steps to the top of the Lightning, and they give away a little button at the top. They've got somebody sitting up there so you don't mess with the light itself. And it was just cool. I actually made it all the way up. I wouldn't now, but I did. Warren Baker, good evening, Dave, from WA4BAK, 54 degrees, and raining here in Chattanooga. When I was director of the Uray County Chorus, we did Chattanooga Choo Choo as one of our songs. Robert Lucan, W3RDL, hi Dave, 68, on the Space Coast. I have a question on fan dipoles. I've seen designs with elements separated by as much as 6 inches and as little as 40 centimeters, couple inches. Any thoughts? I think I'd go more with the 6 than the 2, but you can bring them down parallel to the main, so you only have to hold it up on 2 ends, and you can put little plastic hangers or something there. And I mean, it's going to work fine either way. If you look at the DX Commander original antenna, it's about that big around, and it's actually a fan vertical.
has separate wires for each band, and they're only about an inch apart, and it works fine. I think it's just you've got to get it tuned, and once you get it tuned, you're in good shape. I've been asked which is better, tune the higher bands first or the lower. I think the answer to that is it doesn't matter, because you're going to go back and forth about 3 times before you get it to where you really like it. Okay, and a fan dipole is a great way to do it. You can use the 40 for 15, usually. Although you may have to use your tuner with it, but it will work because it's the 3rd harmonic. Okay, morning, 9:55 a.m. from Richard Joseph. Leo says, using the Doug and Bob McKenzie brothers formula. For F is easy, X times 2 add 30. It's close. Phil, KE0OG, hello from snowy Kalamazoo, Michigan. 3 to 6 inches of snow on the way tonight. Well, you know, I'm just happy that California is getting rain. I realize they're getting more than they can deal with. And in San Bernardino Mountains, it just doesn't rain there, doesn't snow there very much. Big Bear will get some, and they've got a little county class ski resort there. Colorado has, Eldora, for example, is a county class ski resort, whereas Vail and Aspen and Telluride are world-class ski resorts, and there's some in between. I tried skiing once, and I never got out of the wedge, and I couldn't figure out how to turn. People were basically saying, well, you just turn. Yeah, right. Where's the steering wheel? So that was just not fun. So I figured ham radio was not only more fun, but it's a lot warmer in a ham shack than it is on the ski slopes. My kids are both expert skiers. My son goes straight for the double black diamonds. He loves it. However, usually if he comes down here at Christmas, I'll give him a day rental of equipment and a lift pass for a day at Telluride, and that can be a lot of fun. Okay, let's see, Kalamazoo, very wet. San Jose, California, K6PWC, DJ Jackson, hello Dave and all the Augies. Art Doherty, hi Dave from Victor Echo 5, Foxtrot Delta Tango. Question, my Kenwood TS590 sounds distorted on receive and wavy when I transmit only on 10 meters. It sounds like an oscillator instability. And the TS590, I don't know Kenwood's very well. That's a fairly current radio. Ask around at your club, but if it's just on 10 meters, it's frequency dependent. And if your oscillator is unstable on 10 meters, your primary oscillator, the one that you use to tune with, it can cause some FMing in the signal, and that FMing will sound like the warbling or waviness in there. So that could be something like that. Get someone who really knows those radios to do something, because a radio like the 590 is, you take the cover off and you go, where's the empty space? There is no empty space. I mean, those things are really crammed in there to the max. And you need to get somebody who really understands that to fix that. You ought to look at your power supply. The Kenwood TS590 may require more than 12.5 volts to run. The nominal voltage for those is 13.8.
Now, some of the radios will go plus or minus 15%. The mobile radios will. Some will not. For example, my Yaesu FTDX 3000 is 13.8 plus or minus 10%. That gets you down to about 12.6 volts, which is a fully charged battery. So if you go below that, the actions become unpredictable. So I had to get a device from MFJ, which took whatever the battery came out with. No, I actually got it from another party. It's been picked up, I think, by MFJ, I don't know. But it will take whatever the voltage is and boost it to 13.8. And I used that with the 3000, and it worked perfectly. Solved all my problems. But if your voltage is running a little bit low, like you're running off a battery, it could be that this is one of the effects of that. So take a look at that. Mike Oswald, who is rolling on the floor laughing here, sends $10 to the chat revenue. Thank you to all of you who put something into the chat revenue. It helps keep the channel going, and me getting things like this. One of the things that's going to be reviewed real soon is this Mini 1300, which is an antenna analyzer. It's a really nice one. I was looking at it the other day. And I'm going to do a video on that. And this was close to $200. I used a couple Amazon gift cards I had received to reduce that to $150. And I think I accidentally said once that it costs $150. It's closer to $200. Mean. You might be referring to the median, David. You know what, Jeff? I think you're right. The mean is the average. The median is the middle one. Oh, blew that one. Glad I didn't make a video about it. Have to take it down. Charles Pooley. Oh gosh, Dave, if the sea level rises, aeronautical will have to get fixed too. That's absolutely true. Fortunately, my altimeter in the airplane's got a little adjustment for air pressure, but the field elevation would no longer be the same. It would drop by 3 feet. I guess the sea level rise is the equivalent to everything else dropping, isn't it? Anyway, yes, you'd have to take care of it. Aeronautical charts, that is, yes, everything would have to be changed. And if there's more sea level rise, then they got to do it over again. Maybe they will just define mean sea level to be some number and leave it at that. You know, what they did in I'm trying to think what year it was. Let's see, it was the second year I was at UCLA. So 70, 71, there was a big earthquake in San Fernando. It was huge. It was a 6.1, but I was down at UCLA at the time in my dorm room. And I got under the desk, like I'd always been taught to do. And my roommate was running up and down the room saying, "Dave, where are you? Dave, where are you?" And I said something to the effect of, "You stupid idiot, get under the desk." And we went to breakfast after that. It woke up the whole dorm, of course. So everybody went to breakfast. Normally they expected about 200 for breakfast, but there were 900 people there. I think what they did was they'd take an egg, pass it through a candle, and hand it to you. I mean, that's how uncooked the food was. Anyway, I got lots of cool pictures of what it did to the libraries. But because I was working as a photographer for the student newspaper. Actually got paid for that. But what happened is it shifted the entire San Fernando Valley by 3 feet. So that meant that every single property owner
in San Fernando Valley was sitting on their neighbor's property because it had all shifted. And the legal lines are drawn with respect to the survey lines for the whole state and the whole nation. So what they did was pass a law that moved the reference point 3 feet to the west. And that took care of the problem. So, I mean, it was kind of funny. People were trying to figure out how that works. Cliff Bolts, WD4OBP. And John Bray's mean is average, median is the center point. Thank you very much for correcting me on that. I appreciate that. I should know better because I actually have taken classes in stochastic processes and stuff like that, the study of noise and all those kinds of things. And so you've got your mean, you got your standard deviation, and then your mean squared. By the way, if you take the square root of the mean squared, you take a whole bunch of points and do this. You add them all up, and then you take the square root, and then that gives you the RMS voltage, root mean square, which is what we use to designate an AC waveform as being the voltage at which it will, if run through a resistor, dissipate the equivalent amount of heat. Okay, let's see. WV8, KE0OG, Ken. Good evening, Dave. 46 here in Parkersburg, West Virginia. Temp supposed to be dropping here and lots of rain over the next week. You know, one of the things about rain, you can't shovel rain. And I'd much rather have it rain here where we have very good drainage than snow. Rain can soak into the ground, can do all kinds of nice things like that, but you don't have to shovel it off the walk. Okay, so, okay, Justin, Jacob, I get those terms confused. Mean, median, and mode. And I've forgotten what the mode is. Math is not my strong point. Leo says, let's see, Lincoln City, Newport, Florence, Reed Sport. Tom Bartman, cable question. Is it okay to switch between two antennas manually with a 1 foot section of LMR on the radio to two antennas fed with RG6? Or should I make the small jumper RG6? The LMR 400 is fine. You're fine with that. Ground the switch to your station ground. I use these Alpha Delta switches in here. They're built like tanks, and they also have a surge protector in them, one of those little gas discharge tubes. And they short all the antennas that are not being used, short to ground. And then there's a center position where they're all shorted to ground. And they're expensive, but I really like them. They work really well. KC3USL, Pamela, good evening from Massachusetts, N1ZKH. Reggie Love, watching from work. It's time to hit the bunk now. 0215 from Oscar Yankee 1 Romeo Maritime Mobile. That's the MM. Well, very good. Enjoy. You guys on board ship have weird shifts. But thank you for tuning in. Von Ziegel, there's a TCXO available for the TS590. Might be something to look at. Christopher Andrews, good day. Okay. Tom Barrett, I used RG6 before changing to RG213 for my main run. 75-volt cable flips the impedance once you hit the quarter length and leaves it alone again at half length. That's for electrical length. For short runs are fine. Yeah, it does. Like any coax, if you have a half wavelength of it, half electrical wavelength, taking into account the velocity factor, and you connect it to an antenna, the impedance you see down here will be exactly the same impedance that you see at the antenna. That's one way to get the it is true that any other length of coax is an impedance transformer. However, there's always a however. However, if you feed a 50 ohm load, 50 ohm coax, 50 ohm transmitter, it doesn't matter how long or short the cable is because there's no transformering to do. Everything's 50 ohms. Okay, Tom Bartman has added $10 to the channel funds. We're up to $20 now. Thank you. Oh dear, Charlie Pooley. Oops, there goes the main power here in my part of San Jose. Thank goodness for battery backed up solar power. Oh, yes, absolutely. Tom Bartman, Christopher Andrews, thanks. Von Ziegel, TCXO is a temperature-controlled crystal oscillator, yes. Funny thing about sea level rise, Plymouth Rock is no wetter than it was 400 years ago. That's interesting. That's very interesting, actually. You know, that whole area around the Great Lakes, the Great Lakes are depressions in the soil because of the weight of the water. And this goes out over New England and that whole area up there. Remember that the crust of the earth is floating on the mantle. It's floating on the mantle. So if you take all the water out of Lake Superior, what's going to happen? The land will rise because it's floating on something, and you take a weight off and that part of it will rise. And that same thing could be happening over there if something is causing the weight of the water to change. It's interesting. I mean, the continents are floating on the mantle. So is the water underneath the continents are primarily granite. And underneath that is basalt, which is the bottom of the seafloor is basalt. And there's an upwelling in the Atlantic Rift Zone of basalt coming up. It's pushing the continents apart, which is creating the continental drift. You think drift, well, yeah, they're floating. And I mean, this may make it seem kind of funny, but if you go down, it gets hot. And you know, from the diamond mines and places like that, where it's 110 degrees inside the mine, they go down 2 miles. This is why geothermal power works, except going down 2 miles is a whale of a drilling exercise. But as you go down, it gets hotter, 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 hotter. Once you get through the bottom of the crust, you encounter the mantle, and the mantle is liquid, sort of. And magma, which is liquid rock, can come up through breaks, faults, and create volcanoes. And that's just the inside of the earth leaking out. Eventually it's self-settling because the extra magma that was pushing up, the pressure is relieved, the cone collapses, it goes dormant again for a long time. If you keep going down from the mantle, you get to the outer core, which is liquid, and then the inner core, which there's been a lot of controversy about recently, whether it's liquid or solid. The center of the Earth, well, let's just put it this way. The Earth, unlike Mars, unlike the Moon, the Earth has not yet cooled all the way. We think of getting heat from the sun, and yes, it greatly impacts us. But the Earth itself is a radiating black body. Okay? And rock's a pretty good insulator, so Takes a while, like in Antarctica and so on and so forth. But if you start going down into the Earth, it gets hot. And it will get hotter and hotter and hotter. It'll get down in there to where it's as hot as the surface of the sun. Now, does that make the Earth a star? No. There are, as near as anybody can determine, no nuclear reactions taking place at the center of the Earth. Okay, so we're not a failed star, we're just a body that is still cooling. Remember, all the different parts and pieces came together and made the Earth, and the force of them coming together created a great deal of heat, which evaporated on the outside, but the middle is still quite hot. The fact that it is hot and liquid makes it move. And when it moves like that, and a lot of iron down there, it creates a magnetic field. And this magnetic field that surrounds the Earth, it's like microteslas. It's really small. But it's enough to create a magnetic shield around the Earth. So a stream of charged particles, like the solar wind, will come and hit that magnetic field and be deflected. And it will follow the magnetic field lines in to either the North or the South Pole. And you get those charged particles hitting the ionosphere and upper atmosphere, and you get aurora. And that's where the aurora come from. Both the one in the north, one in the south. And it makes for a fabulous light show. And whenever we have a geomagnetic storm, that means there's lots of particles coming in. And they were saying that some parts of northern Colorado were able to see the aurora recently, in the last few days. The only time I have ever seen the aurora was flying, I think from London to, no, I was flying to London. How'd that work out? Anyway, I saw the aurora from there, but I've never seen it otherwise. So there's a lot going on with the sun. So, yeah, and Tom, thank you so much for the chat revenue there. It makes a difference. Let's see. Charlie's lost power. I have in here a pretty substantial solar system. I could literally power my radio forever from it. Not the amp, but the radio. And at one point I had inverters and was powering things in the house, but I'm not right at the moment. There goes the main power. Christopher Anderson, TC. Funny thing about sea level rise, Plymouth. Oh, that's what got me going on that. Fireworks. I'm putting up Alpha Delta DDEE fan dipole up on 20-foot mast. Can I put the 1-to-1 balun at the base of the mast rather than right below the feed point? You know, I wouldn't even bother with the balun on that thing. I know that it doesn't have a built-in balun. Try it without the balun first, and if you get, remember, you should bring that line over to your ground rod, which you have right outside your station window, and put a lightning arrestor there, one of these little things. These are lightning arresters. This is the Alpha Delta model. You can pick these up from DX Engineering, HRO, and lots of other places. And that will ground the outside of the shield so you won't get stuff coming in to the shack. Ideally, you will put the, if you're going to put an unon, put it up there right by the antenna feed, if you can. Okay, just sort of hang it off the thing when you hoist it up there. Okay, put the 1-to-1 balun. Okay, backslider, 893 in the beer joint. Topic, lightning arresters and grounding. My question is, if I use an Alpha Delta lightning arrestor, will it also ground the shield of my coax to dissipate static and floor noise to ground? Yes. Very simple answer, yes. Of course, that lightning arrestor needs to be connected to or clamped to the
ground rod. Okay, Christopher Andrews, also the difference between RG6 and 213 was not much for me, apart from a minor improvement in SWR. Yes, this is true. If you're on a budget, go down to Home Depot and get some RG6 cable. It is vastly less expensive than RG8X. I like RG8X because it's got pretty complete coverage. If you get LMR 240, that has a full 100% shielding. Coax, it doesn't have a full shielding, can leak, can actually leak RF, and things can leak in, noise and stuff can leak in. Okay, let's see. Christopher Andrews, also the difference between, okay, not much. Michael Goad, we have had too much rain here in VK. Yeah, you guys have got a problem with water. It's either feast or famine. And you've got the same problem they do in California, which is getting that stuff to sink into the aquifer rather than letting it all just run out to sea. And since the land there is so dry most of the time, you don't have a root mass from the plants. You don't have enough plants to create enough of a root mass to keep the land from eroding. And of course, you've got your eucalyptus trees there. I grew up with eucalyptus trees. I love eucalyptus trees. Especially, I love the smell. And they're dirty trees. Man, they drop junk all over everywhere. And so they're nice to look at in the neighbor's yard. And then what happens in Australia is the same thing that happens in Southern California. Now, they had a super bloom this year in Southern California because they had so much water, which meant the desert plants flowered, which meant the whole desert is the color of blooms because of the poppies. This is why the poppy is the state flower of Colorado. You have poppies of many gazillions of colors. As a child, I was able to see super blooms in California, and the beauty is stunning, and they're exceptionally rare. Once every 10 or 15 years, you get a super bloom. Now, one of the problems, like in VK land with all this rain, is it causes the grass to grow. And then the grass gets dry. And then what happens? It burns, okay? Now, this is the same problem they have in Southern California. They get their rain in the spring, the grass grows, the chaparral grows, and by October it's burning. And, you know, when I grew up in Southern California, I saw that cycle over and over and over again. We were taught in school that the chaparral, which is the name for the generalized vegetation cover of all the hills, is designed to burn every 5 years so that it will kick the seeds down, and the seeds need the heat to break open. Well, of course, in California, you get that chaparral near homes and stuff, and they wouldn't let it burn, and so it'd be 20, 30 years between the burning. And when it finally burned, oh my, the damage it would cause. It was just unbelievable. So, yeah, they aren't managing. Of course, to manage that properly, you'd have to put in the proper fire breaks and everything. And one thing about the hills in Southern California is they're not gentle rolling hills like the Appalachians. Even the Rockies are less rugged than the mountains in California. The mountains in California are all like this, and up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. And trying to put a road through there is just hard. And they aren't putting any new ones in. I would traverse Angeles Crest Highway frequently going out to the desert. We take Angeles Crest over to Angeles Forest and down into the desert, and then take the old Highway 18 across into Lucerne Valley. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Also the different, let's see, we have had too much rain in VK. Yeah, so you're going to be looking at quite a fire season. What are your thoughts on a long wire antenna versus a dipole? They both work. Okay. Now you need a tuner for a long wire. And ICOM, Kenwood, and Yaesu all make them. They're expensive, but they do work. You can use an MFJ tuner too. A long wire antenna means, technically, it's more than 2 or 3 full wavelengths. So if you're going to do a long wire antenna on 80 meters, you're looking at about a 200 meter, 600 foot piece of wire. And if you do it properly, it will be quite directional in the direction of the wire. Works the other way too. That's how beverages are so directional. Now, you can put up shorter than 2 or 3 wavelengths, in which case we would call it a random wire rather than a long wire. Now, will the tuner tune that? Absolutely it will. What it will do is load it with inductance, and it will work just fine. Very well. Now, your only trade-off going for a random length of wire rather than a dipole is bandwidth. When you load a piece of wire when you load it with inductance near the feed point, it electrically shortens the antenna and the bandwidth goes down. So, like if you create a wire like that for 40 meters, it will not cover the entire band. You have to choose between voice and data. Okay? Or you can choose like the extra band voice and the upper part of the data, but the bandwidth goes down. That's the trade-off you make when you load antennas. They still work well, but over a more narrow range of frequencies. Okay, let's see. Hello from KK4EKK, lots of Ks. Brian Young, hello all. D.A. Jackson. Hey Dave, to add a little to the Great Lakes originally formed as glacial basins, which then turned into iron lakes. The massive weight of the ice, then water, does depress the crust. Yeah, by a few feet. And, you know, one of the problems they have in the Arctic, they don't have the ice they had. And the permafrost is melting down deeper. And so things fixed in the permafrost are no longer fixed. They've had parts of the Atlas pipeline just fall over because they were set in permafrost. It wasn't permafrost anymore. A lot of these former snow-covered fields, which had no vegetation, now have vegetation. And the uncovered stuff that's being uncovered is a lot of carbon dioxide that's being released. So it's quite a change up there. One of the reasons the shipping companies like this is because, at least in the summer, there's an ice-free route from Europe, Northern Europe, to the Far East, to China and Japan. And they go up around in the Arctic Ocean rather than having to come through the Panama Canal or ship stuff across the U.S. or whatever they do. They can just go straight up there. They can't do that all year, but they can more now. Yes, okay, DJ Jackson, there's a ton of radioactive decay in the core that adds to the heat. Not a huge amount. For it to be radioactive decay, it would have to be made of elements
heavier than lead. Lead is the heaviest naturally occurring element that is not radioactive for its most common isotopes. And so what is down there is apparently tin and iron, neither of which are normally radioactive. But there is a lot of heat down there. It's very hot. And so I don't know, maybe down in the center of the Earth, they've solved the hydrogen fusion problem. My opinion on hydrogen fusion is that I will not live to see the day. I've been hearing about hydrogen fusion for 50 years. And it's always a couple years away. I remember one time Lockheed talked about how they were going to make a commercial product out of a fusion reactor. And they had been doing all this engineering and everything to get the heat out, get it to the heat pumps, to run the generator and so on. And I'm going, guys, nobody's created fusion yet that's controllable. Now, of course, Edward Teller created the first fusion bomb. It was an atomic bomb, a fission device, on a tower above some fusion-type chemicals, tritium. They had lithium in there. And they calculated the yield to create a 10 megaton bomb. And when the bomb exploded up on the top, it pushed down and super compressed this fusion fuel, hydrogen, and they thought they were going to get 10 megatons. This was the Castle Bravo test? No. Anyway, they did not count on the lithium also fusing. And the lithium fused, we're only talking a couple pounds here. The lithium fused, and it changed it from a 10 megaton blast to a 15 megaton blast. And all the instrumentation was set up for 10 megaton blasts. This was on Bikini Atoll. And it just did way more destruction than people thought it would do. And they had all kinds of fun in that area because they had irradiated a lot of the natives, and it was just a mess. Just a mess. Let's see. The Great Lakes, okay, a ton of radioactive decay in the core. I would be interested in learning about that. If you can send me a Wikipedia quote or a quote to some paper or something, DJ, I'd really like to learn more about that. I'm just very interested in that stuff. Leo asks, Dave, do you have to deal with a significant noise floor with the solar panel system so nearby your station? No. The solar panels themselves do not have inverters on them, so they are totally RF quiet. There's a little box over there that has a maximum power point tracking device that takes the 24 volts from the panel and charges those 12-volt batteries at up to 20 amps. The panel puts out 7 amps at 24 volts, so that'd be 14 amps at 12 volts. And it's that particular charge controller is a Bioenno product, and that's a ham radio product. I actually bought it at Dayton. I had to reconfigure it to do lead-acid batteries because it was set up for lithium. But I don't have big lithium batteries. These lead-acid batteries have lasted me about 15 or 16 years. They're way past due, but they work fine. And I'm not getting rid of them until they don't work fine. Okay, Jeff Delfini says, is there a reason why stations tune-up
using a tone at high power. From Jeff AD4F in Charlotte, North Carolina. Is there a reason? Yes. Is there an excuse to do so? No. Okay. Tuning with most radios actually puts out power. Now, like my Ten-Tech up there, when I push tune, it put out the full 100 watts, and then you could tune the external tuner. And then they put a firmware mod in it where it only did it at 20 watts. All you really need is about 2 watts. Now, if somebody has an amplifier, and they're going to blast out on the air for that, what you do is you put that in bypass, and then you tune the antenna with what they call in that setup the exciter, meaning your main rig. And you can tune it with just a few watts. And the automatic antenna tuner, I know my MFJ automatic antenna tuner had to see 4 watts before it would tune. And then you can tune up quickly, and they usually do tune up quickly. And then you kick the amplifier on. Now, with tube amps, one of the problems is that tube amps have got their own Pi network output, and it may not be a 50 ohm output. And so you end up having to tweak the tuning. And the single tone is actually a CW Morse code tone. And that is how a lot of people tune their systems, is put it into CW, press down on the key and tweak until they get everything right. If I were them, I'd press down on the key, then tweak, then press down on the key and tweak, because otherwise you might damage the tubes in your amplifier, or if you have one of those old tube or hybrid radios. So that's what happens. Now, how can you fight that? Okay, you have on your radio a notch filter. All radios have them these days. All radios have them. Turn on the notch filter. The automatic notch will find that tone and eliminate it. And what they'll do is just put a very thin notch filter right over that tone. And they can tune all you want, and you're working around them, except for the few hertz right around that tone. Some automatic notch filters, like the one on the Ten-Tech, will handle multiple tuner-uppers. Okay, so this is a good way, like if you've got a DX station you're trying to listen to, and idiots are trying to tune up on that frequency, just turn on your notch filter. And if you got the automatic notch, which you probably do, it'll take care of it. Poof, they're gone. Okay? And that's what the notch filter is for. Okay? Now, some radios have manual notches where you can tweak the tuning so it goes completely away. One of the problems that you have to look out for is that these strong signals will grab your automatic gain control. And so the radio turns itself down because there's such a strong signal coming in. So a really well implemented notch filter is done prior to the sampling of the level for the automatic volume control, or automatic gain control, AGC. Okay, or you can turn it off, although that really risks hurting your ears. Anyway, that is what we have there. Jeff, thank you very much for adding $50 to the chat revenue. We're up $70. Thank you very, very much for that. Third base, good night. Can you talk a little about Part 15 FM broadcast community radio stations? Those are very low power. And you could probably use just, RG at X or something like that. Because the amount of power that's allowed there is so small. Tom Bartman, for people who hide a dipole in the attic for 10 meters in a housing association, how to ground that if needed. I wouldn't worry about it. It's inside your house. If a dipole is in the attic, does it need to be grounded? Well, remember when you ground the cable on one of those things, you're only grounding one side, not the other. Now, the lightning arrestor, if static builds up on that, which would be really hard to do in the attic because it's wind that creates the static. But if it's a nearby lightning strike, you can actually get a voltage response in there. And that's where the lightning arrestor comes in and takes care of that. So even if you have your antennas in the attic, I recommend that you run the cable for that out to the ground, not in the house. Lightning arrestors belong outside the house. And then bring the cable in another way to your station. I've got a friend, Lou French, who has a second floor station. So he runs all his cables all the way down to the ground to a lightning arrestor, and then all the way back up outside his house. It's a different route now, but up the side of the house and into the ham jack. So that's a good way to kind of control that. Okay, RBH, love your live stream, Dave. How do you stacked Yagis work? Think of a Yagi as a flashlight. It's taking all your power and I have my flashlight in here. I'm supposed to. Here it is. Think of a Yagi as a flashlight. Okay, it's putting all the power in one direction, okay, rather than in other directions. Now, if you put another Yagi on top of that, it's like having two flashlights putting the power on there. So it doubles the effectiveness of the beam, and by narrowing the beam. The two beams after the near field form together, and it will be more focused and therefore more gain in the direction that it's focused. Okay, so that's how stacked Yagis work. I called a finished station from Seattle on 5 watts with a 5.7 report. We walked my power down to 0.1 watts with a 4.2 report. Great ears. It's those big DX stations, like in Finland and so on, are excellent operators, and they can really do the DX really, really well. And yeah, once you have a link established, you can get it down to very little power. And now if you were using something like FT8, you could probably go even further down. Ham radio hobo. I have a Yaesu FT897. VFO is bad and the LCD is showing blank spots. You've got a real issue there. If the LCD is showing blank spots, you're probably going to have to get a new one. And good luck. Ham radio repair is an issue and always has been an issue and probably always will be. If the manufacturer were in the United States, you could send it back to Hallicrafters or Collins or somebody like that, and a qualified service technician could do something with it. Radios back then were designed to be maintained and fixed. New electronics is not. And I know they're very expensive and there is a warranty period, and your dealer may help you with the warranty, DX Engineering, HRO, whatever it may be. But ultimately it's the manufacturer, and they're in Japan. They have an outpost like Yaesu, I think, is in Cerritos, California. And I've looked it up on a map, and it's like one slot in a sort of a strip mall of businesses in there. And so they don't, their primary purpose is to be a transshipment point for stuff coming in on the cargo containers and going out to the ham radio retailers. They're not going to help you much. You could look at the internet, there's undoubtedly a Facebook group or a Discord group or a Groups.io group there who can help you with suggestions. But if the rig is a few years old, you're really on your own. And I'm sorry to say that, but that's kind of the truth. You know, if you built it yourself or something, you can look at it. You've got the schematic. You can play with it, maybe figure out transistor went bad or something. Okay, J. Mark Andrews, greetings from Oregon. Al Clapaxida, greetings from VK3. David KE0OG. And W1JGM, John, can you explain roofing filters? I will, in just one moment. Be right back. Hello, little one. No. Come on. There we go. Come on. Come on. Let's show you off. Can you come up? There we go. There we go. This is Emmy Lou. Say hi. Are you even looking at them? There you go. Yes, those are cataracts. I'm afraid she's pretty close to blind. She's quite old. Okay. J. Mark Andrews, greetings from Oregon. Al, greetings from VK3. W1JGM, can you explain roofing filters? Yes. The point of a roofing filter, and they're not really a big thing anymore, and personally, I think that they were primarily a marketing gimmick. But the idea was, if you're only going to operate on one band with your receiver, which is probably the case, why not create a filter in front of everything that passes only 40 meters? Then that way you won't have issues with, you know, a really strong station on another band creating birdies or something like that. And the idea was that the filter acted as sort of a roof over the entire band, which would help keep anything outside the band, and then let the radio take care of the frequency selectivity after that. And those were called roofing filters. And for a while, you saw a lot on that. The roofing filter was a way around the radio creating birdies and really strong signals leaking through the wrong, you know, let's see, I'm trying to think.
we did triple conversion radios because you had fewer false signals. Direct conversion radios, you often get the signal twice, on the upper sideband and on the lower sideband. So anyway, this is a way to help that. You don't hear anything about roofing filters anymore. Now, really, they do need to do something like that, and the 7300 does. If you're on 40 meters, it'll slap a filter over the input so that it's just 40 meters coming through before they go to their direct digital conversion. So there is a RF filter in there. And you can see that when, I put that little thing on to tap the output of the receiver so we could look at it on the SDR. And if you switch bands, it will switch which data will come out. Now, there is another place you can hook in there after the first RF amp, and it will give you all the bands at once. So there's basically a roofing filter in there. They don't talk about it because they want to say that everything is direct digital synthesis. My dog here thinks that I am talking to her. Hello there. Are you a ham? I don't think so. You can certainly be cheesy. Okay. So anyway, that's roofing filters. And like I said, it was primarily a marketing tool to say, a roofing filter. Well, if the roofing filter is no different from any other filter, it's just a bandpass filter that kind of protects the rest of the radio circuitry from anything outside the band. And that's what it's for. So I know they made quite a deal about it on my Yaesu FTDX 3000. It has roofing filters in it. You can hop down right there. And so that's roofing filters. Let's see. Thanks for the notch filter for the tuner uppers. Didn't know that. Yeah, that'll work quite well with that. G. Mark Andrews, will a metal support mast of my quarter wave 20 meter vertical alter the tuning of the tuned 45 degree ground radials? The radials terminate above ground, the base of the radiator quarter wavelength above ground. I don't think so. I mean, it will have an effect. I mean, the first rule of antennas is that everything affects everything. But I think it will be taken into account by your tuner. And besides which, it's under the radials, which act as the counterpoise. The antenna can't really see it. So it's something to think about. Wargame Journey's question about station ground, given the location of my radio in the house, if I run a traditional ground wire, it will more than likely become resonant. What should I do short of moving the radio? Well, I mean, that is something you can consider. But we're grounding for safety. We're grounding to reduce noise. That's a big reason for doing it. Go ahead and run the ground. Now, if it creates ground loops, you might look at either moving your ground rod so it's closer to the radio. Always outside, though. You want to keep lightning outside the house. And so that's why you don't put ground rods in the crawl space or whatever, is you want to keep the ground and the lightning out of the house. So that's what I'd recommend. Go ahead and run the ground anyway. It may become resonant, but I mean, if you look at my ground here, it's probably resonant on 10 meters, maybe 15 and 12, but I've never had an issue with it. So make the ground wire thick. Okay, number 6, I would go with stranded. Number 6, bare wire, although I guess you can put others in. My ground run is number 2, stranded,
insulated. Then it goes down from the ground bar on the back of the desk outside to the ground rod where it is got a hose clamp around it, just cranked down really tight on it. And when I put that in, I stopped having the noise problems I was having. So let's see. Oh, we're running out of time. Moving the radio is not feasible. Well, okay, I understand that. So just work the best you can around it. Greetings from Kissimmee, Florida, Dale and 4TAQ. This is the best informational channel, just saying. Well, thank you very much, Dale. I really appreciate that. And I'd appreciate you telling your friends about this channel, too. We are growing still as a channel. A lot of channels are shrinking. This channel is still growing, about 9,000 subscribers a month, which is up from what it was a couple months ago. And I'm encouraging people to support the channel through Patreon. Go to patreon.com/KE0OG and pick a method that works for you. And, you know, my check this month for last month's Patreon was $1,500, which really, really, really helps do things like buy this, buy cameras, pay my assistant, all this stuff. I just gave my assistant a raise because I don't want to lose him. He's a junior in high school. He's going to be senior this coming year. And I don't want to lose him to McDonald's. You know, I got to pay him more than that because I really, really depend on him. Basically, I shoot the videos. He takes it from there. So he does all the post-production. I also does a lot of the pre-production, getting things set up and so on. And I'm involved largely in the production, the actual shooting of the videos. Okay, let's see. Kissimmee, good evening, Dave and everyone. I can hear the clock. Yeah, it's right there. One of my favorite clocks. It's mechanical. It was made in China. And I got it from some surplus source, anyway. And it was less than $100. It's a beautiful piece of furniture, or wall art, or whatever you want. And it keeps fairly good time. Now, for me, I want my digital clocks to be to the second. My analog clocks, if they're 5 minutes off, that's close enough. Okay. Okay, let's see. Good evening, Dave. TikTok. Yeah, it's loud. Sounds great. Edgar Allan Poe style. It has a double click. Yeah, it does. So, okay, let's see. Hey, Dogo. Question. If a repeater coordinating organization refuses to take your calls or respond to your emails, trying to get a repeater that's been in existence for 30 years, what course of action can be taken? It's a little rough. Repeater coordinators are independent of the ARRL and are not supervised by the league. Each repeater coordinator is a separate entity, and it can be a real issue if things start to get personal. If you've got some specific information you're trying to get, most of the information about repeaters is published. You can look in the online repeater directory. You can get free access for that. You could call your local section manager and say, hey, I'm having this issue. Do you have any suggestions for me? Now, if you're involved in some sort of a contest, a war of words with them, then yeah, maybe they'll just shut you out. But if the repeater has been there for a while and it's coordinated, they're not doing anything wrong. So, but go ahead and call your section manager. ARRL section manager. The list of section managers is on the inside of, it's in the first few pages of every issue of QSD. And you can find them and just give them a call saying, I'm having trouble. Give me some guidance. Okay, let's see. Hi, Dave Alt. Sorry I'm so late. We're just about wrapping up. William, KE0OG. Looks like you have DX Engineering stickers behind you. Did you get some new toys? Yes, I did. And I think I've got a video coming on it. MFJ makes this thing called the octopus. And it takes ham sticks and makes dipole, 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 4 dipoles. And they all work. It's in essence a fan dipole except spread around the horizon. The MFJ hub for that is really flimsy. So chameleon antennas for a while made octagon hubs that were far sturdier. And so I called Chameleon to talk to them about it, and they no longer made the octagon. So they were kind enough to send me one of their quad things. It just takes 2 sets, so you can be on 2 bands at once. And they take ham sticks. Well, I didn't have any ham sticks. So I just got on DX Engineering's website and ordered some. They're about $30 each. You need 2 of them for each band. So it was $120 worth of ham sticks. I haven't actually tried it because it is mud season here in Colorado. It's a mess outside. But I do know it works. And so I did a video about both the box and the ham sticks. And if that hasn't played yet, it will be soon. We're about a week ahead on videos. So, I was saying hi to your dog. Oh, Dogo. Okay. Thanks for your informative videos. Endo Tooth. Sounds like a dentist of some kind. Hello to all from KG4HVQ in North Alabama. Glenn Martin says, thanks for everything, Dave. Have a great week. Well, thank you very much. We ended up with $70 in the chat revenue, which helps buy things like that thing I got from DX Engineering. At least I got some free stickers out of them. And we've got lots of good reviews coming up. I've got so many things to review. I want to get through the reviews and then mix in some Ask Daves, and so that we can kind of get back. But there's forever something coming in the review. I just reviewed yet another power station. Nice one, made by All Powers. It's pretty good. Dave, any recommendations for first-time amplifier? I know that antennas and good coax cable are the first requirements, but if I'm thinking of an amp, well, a 500 watt amp, which is what I've got, versus a 1500 amp. So if you take the 500 and double it to 1000, you've got 3 dB of gain. And then you're not doubling again, so you're under another 3 dB of gain. So you're about 5 dB of gain. So whereas a 500 watt amplifier can give your station a heck of a kick. Look at 500 or 600 watt amps. They're available from a lot of people. Mine is MFJ, but there are others out there. Ameritron is the MFJ brand for amplifiers. If you want you're going to pay $2,500 or so. Maybe a little more now with inflation. If you get a 1500 watt amp and it's got any bells and whistles at all, it's going to be over $6,000 or more. And you're going to have to rewire your ham shack for 220 volts or 240 volts.
240 in the US. This amplifier here, 500 watts, it runs fine on the regular wall outlet. Okay, the light's kind of dim a little bit, but you know, but if you go any higher power than that, you're going to have to run 240 volts to your ham station. And that is something that I would leave to a competent electrician. I know how to do it myself, but I'm getting to the point I'd really rather leave that to a competent electrician. In any event, if you do electrical work, pull a permit and get it inspected. That way, if there's a fire in your house, the insurance company says, oh, you had that inspected, it must be okay. Whereas if you didn't have it inspected, they say, you're making mods to your house you don't know how to make, man, you just lost your insurance. And that does happen, so be careful, okay? So, thank you very much to everyone for being part of this live stream. This is one of my favorite times of the week when I have a chance to get together with you guys and gals, and there's gals out there too, from all over the world, from the four corners of the earth. And thank you very much for joining. And until we next meet, 73.